welcome back to another episode of Blam Blam Truckers with Bees and Views. I'm Views.
I'm Bees.
And we are happy to welcome you into our homes and into our conversations with each other, trying to keep a positive spin on geekdom, nerddom, fun stuff like comics, movies, gaming.
You sure you want to keep it positive? Because the week of this recording, South Park actually released Into the Panderverse, and apparently it's getting great ratings.
I haven't watched South Park since I was in high school.
Fair enough.
Actually, no, that's not true. I did watch the first half of the pandemic special, and I never watched the second half. But still, in general, I haven't watched South Park except for that since high school. But hey, whatever works. And South Park in itself can be positive, and South Park does technically fall within the realm of geekdom and nerddom, just like Family Guy and all that other sort of stuff. So hey, whatever works. Oh, and in case anybody's wondering, since I forgot to put Blur back on my screen, as we are recording this, it is currently Halloween time, a few days beforehand of 2023. I'm sorry we didn't dress up, but we knew this wasn't going to come out during Halloween, so we didn't even think about doing any sort of costumes. Maybe next year, maybe not, because I'm seeing Bees shaking his head no a little bit there. But
I don't think you have enough money to get me to dress up.
Maybe by then we'll have a Patreon, and that can be a Patreon goal. Like 200 Patreons, we get Bees to dress up.
I could wear my last Halloween costume I bought.
Or we could use your funds from Patreon to buy him a new one.
Oh, I never got to wear my last Halloween costume. That's a sad story.
Oh.
Would all of you people, all of you Blam Blam truckers out here, do you want to hear my sad Halloween story from like 10 years ago?
Yes!
All right. It's amazing how fast there's instant feedback from the internet. It just comes right back to you. It's fantastic.
Well,
we haven't even put this out on the internet yet.
Well, I mean, Mrs. Buse over here, she wanted to hear the story, so.
So about 5-10 years ago, I finally bought a Halloween costume, because I hate dressing up. And I got the Mal costume from Firefly. If you guys ever watch Firefly, which I assume most of you have. And it wasn't a very expensive costume. It was like $20 with shipping included. And I bought it, and it came in, and I had like 5 Halloween parties to go to. You guys have probably heard this story, I'm sure.
I think I may have.
You heard it when it happened. I was so annoyed by this. 5 Halloween parties to go to. And as soon the day the costume came in through the mail, I didn't even get a chance to open it, the first party got canceled. Within that week, all 5 parties got canceled. Within a week, 5 parties got canceled. And there were 2 breakups involved, two relationships from friends of mine. And so both of those just, they said, we're not together anymore, we're not going to host a party at our place, and it was ridiculous. I went from having 5 parties to wear it to having 0 parties to wear it to, and I haven't been to a Halloween party since where I'd wear the stupid costume. Not including going to my buddy Harry Johnson's house to he does the trick-or-treating for his neighborhood. His whole neighborhood does it, and nobody dresses up. We're the adults. We bring candy. We sit in lawn chairs, and usually we used to have adult beverages, but Harry and I have stopped drinking, and that's a pseudonym. His name's not actually Harry Johnson.
Okay, I was thinking I was like, I'm gonna just edit out to where he says buddy and leave out that, but that works.
No, that's a pseudonym. So we just go on Halloween night. I go there, and when I'm not working, and we pass out candy and tell stories, and we both quit drinking since then, so we don't drink anymore. It's an okay time. It's kind of a party, if you like candy.
Yeah. I mean, I like candy. Probably a little too much, but I like candy.
I usually give out glow-in-the-dark things. You know those snappy things that light up when you shake them?
Yep, actually,
Glow sticks.
we do that as well. So my wife and I, for our trick-or-treaters, we actually found that, especially families in the area, parents go and walk around with their children, they actually always will hit us. Not literally. I don't need to defend myself with my phaser here. But they normally come to us. Some of them hit us first because we do just like Bees was talking about. We do the glow sticks. We have toys. We actually so we used to start doing it for a lot of families that had children who had like more sensory issues or weren't able to have candy and stuff like that. And so, we heard parents telling us multiple times. Okay, my wife's out there more than I am, so she actually heard them say it, and she's shaking her head in the background there. Where they were like, you're one of the few places that we know that we can go to because, our kids won't get upset because they're not able to have a particular type of candy, because whether it be they're allergic to peanut butter or, the parents just don't want them to have sugar. And also, by coming to us, since we have options other than candy, even if just a stupid little toy, that's something the kid can actually use and play with that night, as opposed to having, 10 pounds of candy in a sack, which you're not going to let your kid eat right away, and they're not going to be able to at least eat the entirety of it, except over the course of a month. Now they've got stuff they can go with. And so what a lot of kids were even doing, even if they could have candy, they wouldn't choose candy when they came to us. They would choose the toys, the glow sticks, the pencils, the notebooks, all that sort of stuff, which is great for us because it actually ends up being a little cheaper than candy for some of the stuff. And we just decided, like, one year, we gave away less candy than we did the other stuff, and it was just, in the end, why not just do that permanently? The kids are still going to take stuff. The parents prefer it.
And you can go to the dollar store in your local area and get like a tube. You can get a tube of the tiny glow sticks.
And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, people love them.
So, in 2019, so the year before everything went to crap, what we actually did that year was we took our K-Cup machine outside.
Man, ever since Harambe died. Go on.
So we took our K-Cup machine outside. I had a long extension cord going out there with a table, and we offered the parents coffee. They loved that because we had like the little throwaway cups, whatever. We had sugar equal and stevia out there, as well as some like non-dairy creamer and things like that. Hey, like, not everybody took it, but there were a lot of people who were so happy, and they're like, there was one person who was like, I'm so happy I'm hitting you guys first. And then someone else was like, I wish we had hit you first. I could have used this jolt of energy at the very beginning. So, it was a lot of fun. Who knows? Maybe I will put this episode out early, just in time for Halloween special. It won't be too bad.
I feel bad. You got all this geekitude behind you, and I have so much more geekitude behind me, but you can't tell because it's all in boxes.
Oh, speaking of geekitude, so I was about to talk about this before, and we got off track. So, since I don't have my blur screen up, you can see what I'm working on. So, for my church's trunk or treat, I'm planning on going as Geordie LaForge. And so, I didn't get a chance to build a warp core, which I really wanted to do, but that's just not going to come in the cards. But I've been working on the panels for my setup. So, I've got various different L-Cars panels that I've done up, and Bees is being nice and saying that my art is better than it is, but so I've just got various different L-Cars panels that would be roughly decent in engineering. My paint job's not perfect, but it doesn't really have to be for a bunch of little kids. So I've got I
think it looks good.
So that's what's in my background, and then of course I've got a Marvel backpack and Indiana Jones's hat in my background as well. Those have nothing to do with Halloween, but they're there.
All right, I'm going to grab something at random from my giant pile of geekitude over here. What is this?
The NES Classic. Or
SNES.
Super NES Classic.
Oh yeah.
Did you buy that? Did you buy that before it went crazy on price, or?
I got it from Walmart on sale.
Oh, how long ago?
I don't know. I've only played it once, and I'm very tempted to take those joysticks out and use them for like emulators and stuff.
Oh, right, because they're just
instead
USB.
of just setting it up to my TV instead. But it's nice that they're USB.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. All these things that are coming out, they're all... I mean, it makes sense because USB is prolific, and it means that you can run the stuff on almost anything. Like, you know, even using, like... Nice.
Keeping up with the Star Trek over here. Just kidding.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, I was like, what did you mean by that?
I saw it. I saw it on your face.
But speaking of Star Trek also, so I used my remaining pips from my Geordie uniform to put on my personal jacket, so I'm now a lieutenant, which, since he has no pips, I outrank him. He's just a crewman.
I have no idea what this is from, but this is actually a Republic trooper with a jetpack.
That's very cool.
I don't know how well you can see it, but that is a
If you stop
trooper.
moving... There we go. Very nice.
Probably from a Hoth set, from the looks of things. I don't remember them ever having a jetpack in one of the movies. Maybe it was one of the shows I missed.
Possibly. I don't recall it, and I've seen most of the shows, but... Oh, there you go.
My copy of Logan, still haven't seen the movie yet.
I'm telling you, I was very, very disappointed that Patrick Stewart did not get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor in that.
One of the seasons of Burn Notice. It's just random stuff I have behind me.
I have about 5 seasons of Burn Notice behind that blue curtain.
I'll tell you what, when we get into, like, I don't know, 1,000 subscribers or something, I'll show you guys what's in the box. Who wants to see what's in the box, huh?
I do. See, instant feedback again. I know.
That's amazing.
All right, very nice. So, oh, wait, I've got one final thing to end our Geekitude stuff on.
Really? I have dice on my desk.
Oh, that's two. I've got Darth Vader, candy bowl, holding a pumpkin.
Why is the pumpkin sad? He's with Darth Vader, the greatest father in Star Wars.
Because he's not with his brother and sister, Luke and Leia.
You mean son and daughter?
No, the pumpkin.
Oh.
He said he's with the greatest father. I mean...
He's the only father in Star Wars, so...
That's not true at all.
In the movies? 6 movies? Yeah, I said 6.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, fair enough.
I've got about 4 of these on my desk right now. This is a spin counter from... This is not a 20-sided die.
No.
This is a spin counter from D&D. Hold on.
Which means it doesn't...
I'm sorry, Magic
the Gathering, yeah.
Specifically M13.
Which means it doesn't have to be balanced. However, I have used it as a 20-sided die before.
They work pretty well.
Namely as a GM. In a D6 game, so it didn't really matter anyways.
Okay. That's interesting.
As long as we're just gonna geek out on random stuff. So, I realized... So, in my games that I run, I do luck rolls a lot. And just kind of if I have multiple outcomes in my mind and want to give players a shot. So I normally will have them roll against me, or I'll choose a number and they have to beat it or match it or whatever, depending upon how I'm feeling. However, when I was going through my dice last week, because off-screen... Very nice. Off-screen, the solo game that Bees ran with me is continuing on to our larger group of friends, and we're running through it. And then I pulled out these, and I'm like, I think from now on I'm going to be using these for my luck die. They are... There we go. Oh,
Down a little.
there.
That's probably good. Now stop moving.
They are rock, paper, scissors, dice. The black one shows
Of
up
course
better.
they are.
So I could use these, and they're even D6 too, technically. I can use these for luck
Of course
rolls.
they are.
Just hand one to the players, keep one on my side, and yeah, I think they'll come in quite handy. And I think it's much more fun that way. So it's more of a 1 out of 3 chance. Oh. And then we have the Boba Fett mug.
Oh, you're going again? I'll go again.
Oh, that's true.
This, randomly, this is just from the top of the pile. This is Jeff Jones and Jim Lee's run on Justice League.
Very nice. Have not read that.
Neither have I. It's so shiny because it's still in the wrapping.
Oh, and I didn't realize that... Oh, by the way, if anybody wants to just buy cheap random comic books, head over to your Ollie's. If you're on the East Coast, they're across the East Coast. Oh, Nightfall. Nice. I did not...
It's the whole thing.
Oh, I might ask to borrow that from you later. But,
That's fine.
I didn't realize that the Supergirl book you bought me, I hadn't gotten into it because I thought it was modern Supergirl, but it was not even just pre-52 or pre-0.
It's the first Supergirl series post-Crisis.
Right. So it was the Matrix Supergirl.
That's the first Crisis, by the way.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of crises for those of you.
The
All you truckers out there that don't know, DC likes to reboot every 5 minutes.
But you know what? One nice thing about them rebooting is it lets them stay more current. Marvel...
It does. And I actually appreciate a lot of their reboots when they're continuity. They recognize they have a problem with continuity and they fix it by doing a reboot. 0 Hours was one of those. And then they don't stay out, especially since they changed their editorial staff a lot recently, which is their business, it's their company. Good for them. But it lets them not only stay current, like you said, but they can fix problems with the story that they make by making editorial mistakes. You were going to say?
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, one of the things, and I loved Marvel, and I still do love Marvel. At least I love Marvel stories, and and Bees will tell you, like, more than Bees, I watch a lot of the Marvel stuff, not just MCU. I watch a lot of the cartoons and stuff that comes out. I don't read the comics.
Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes. How's that theme song go?
Oh, I could sing the whole thing, but
Always we will fight as one. Something like that, right?
I actually have the entire thing memorized. But yeah, it was Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. If you have Disney Plus, now I'm not saying it's worth getting Disney Plus to watch, but I would consider it if you haven't seen it. It is that good of a show. It did Secret Invasion much better than the MCU did. The characters were fairly true, and I don't mind characters and stuff somewhat changing, whatever. That's not a big deal. However, it was just done so well. I preferred it over the other series, Avengers Assembled, which I enjoyed, but it just wasn't as good as Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Earth's Mightiest Heroes was a solid show. I felt it had a slower start, but that was mainly because of the web series that it had building up to it, which those web series episodes were folded into regular episodes and then just lengthened out, and it was...
The other side to that.
What was that?
The other side to that is most of those, when Earth's Mightiest Heroes started production, the only movies that had come out for Marvel at that point were Iron Man and Hulk and maybe Iron Man 2, I forget.
Yep.
But
And it was based...
Thor and Captain America hadn't come out yet as movies.
And it actually referenced those movies. So in my mind, at the time, you could watch those 2 or 3 movies, because, yeah, Captain America hadn't even come out at that point. You could reference those 2 movies, and that was the background you had for the world. And Nick Fury even referenced the "I am Iron Man" statement that Tony made at the end of the first Iron Man movie in that cartoon. So it felt like it kind of, in a way, made me feel like we had an MCU. Like, we had MCU before we had an MCU, because we hadn't gotten Thor, we hadn't gotten Captain America, but those characters, came in, and so we got the somewhat origin stories and stuff for them. Not so much Thor, they just had Thor exist in the show for the most part, but it was a good show. It was a good show. I highly recommend. One of my favorite depictions of Captain America. The actor who did it, I thought he did fantastic. And not just because I also played Star Wars The Old Republic, and he voiced the Trooper, which is a character I played as a main for a while. But I'm actually noticing a pattern with him here. But it was a very solid show.
It's called typecasting.
Yes. But
it also it grew the fan base. Like, fans like us love the fact that when they get stuff right, and they keep continuity similar. We don't expect a cartoon to have all the same continuity as movie series, but that means a lot. Kind of what we're trying to do with our story, or our world we're creating here, our space fantasy epic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I picked one of the boxes on top of my pile from behind me. It was my geek room, and let's see what's inside. There's some CDs in here. So the first one is just a blank CD. I have no idea what's on it, but I'm sure I put something on it. So
Bill Engvall, here's your Christmas album. Very nice. One of my favorite comedians. Transformers movie. And by the Transformers movie, we don't mean we mean the actual cartoon.
With songs by Lion, including "You've Got the Touch" and
Weird Al Yankovic's "Dare to Be Stupid."
Oh yeah, this is an amazing soundtrack. Highly recommend.
Put down the chainsaw and listen to me. Oh, I don't have it in this.
Dare was the other song.
There we go. But I don't have it in the room with me, but I actually was thinking about grabbing it. I have that. I never finished it. I was enjoying it, but I didn't finish it. Might have to buy it on Steam.
I have it on Steam. It's okay. When it came out, it was great, but that was 20 years ago.
You and I should do like a Twitch session or something on here where we play a game of Rebellion. Is that Michael Jackson? Is that his? No, Garth Brooks. Oh, wow. Sorry, there's a little bit of glare, and I was trying to make it look like Michael Jackson.
That's from my other monitor with the list of all the things all the suggestions, brainstorming questions for the sci-fi universe.
It's the same issue I ran into with the dice, but yeah, I've got my light directly in front of my camera. I've got one of those ring lights, and I've got it over the camera, so. Here. So, I got this from Loot Crate. It is the Enterprise plaque. I'll have to make sure I reverse this for when we put this on, but had fun with that. Downstairs, I've got like a duel of the Cantina songs from, A New Hope, and it's like because it's only got like 2 tracks on it, it's one of those CDs where it's entirely clear except for just like a minor band on there, and it's got Figrin D'an and the Modal Nodes all around the disc, so it's a bunch of their heads. So their head, like if you have one of those like see-through top CD players, you just see their heads spinning constantly.
Nice. Check this out.
Jumper.
This is a fantastic, absolutely amazing book by Stephen Gould. I got it for $1 at the book barn. I've read it a dozen times. Highly recommended. They made a lousy movie out of it, and I'm not trying to be negative. That it just wasn't all that good. Starring Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson. It came out after the Star Wars movies, and they completely ignored the plot of this book when they're adapting it.
They brought in some nice scenes from the book, like most movies do, but it wasn't a good adaptation. And I know why they did it, because reading the book, I'm going to be honest, that book is more of a drama, but they wanted an action movie. So they had to create characters. They had to create more
tension.
More tension, conflict. More tension, more conflict. They had to literally create characters or completely change characters in order to fit that action movie mode. And I'm going to be honest, and I've said this before. I think I've said I'm going to be honest before, but I mean something different.
No, lie to me.
That was a good show.
Was.
But I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I'm not sure if I watched the movie before reading the book, but I had rewatched it after reading the book, at the very least, and I saw the differences. As an action movie that came out when it did, it was okay. It wasn't anything that was going to win a ton of awards or anything like that, but it was just a Magic the Gathering. Is that one of the like those sets that like help you deck build, but they're not quite deck building sets?
No, this is just a set of cards from Avison.
Oh, nice.
This is an unopened box for all. I don't know how many packs are inside here, but it's all Avison packs inside here.
Nice. Keep that aside. You'll be able to sell it for like triple the amount in 1 year. Or it's been
this came out like 15. What year was this? Oh, I'd have to check, but it's well over 10 years old.
There you go. But yeah, and not to,
you were talking about Jumper.
Yeah, and not to put stuff down, but Jumper, I feel similar to that as I do the Wheel of Time series. Like, I can understand why they made some choices, but I don't think that they made the right decisions, and it in many ways completely changed it. I mean, let's be honest, Jumper, like you said, it's completely different. It changes the characters by changing the situations. If characters don't go through what they're supposed to get to where they are, it legitimately just creates a completely different character. Not everything has to be exactly the same, but characters act in different ways, which in the movie than what in the book they would have acted if those same situations had presented themselves. Again,
to riff off what you're saying, back in 1999, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, the first X-Men movie came out, and a bunch of us college guys got together and went to go see it. I don't think you were at the same school as me at the time. Did you come with us for that?
99 was when I started school with you. I graduated in 98.
Hold on. Where's my thing? You must have been there then.
Yeah, I remember.
Was it 99 or 2000? Anyway,
it was right after orientation when I started at the college that we had this discussion. A buddy of ours who lives in Japan now, whose older brothers. Oh
yeah.
But yeah, I was there for that.
So that night, wait, was Spikey in your class? Because Spikey was there.
Spikey wasn't there for the conversation I'm thinking of.
No, when we went to go see the movie.
Oh, I was thinking about before it came out when we were all sitting in the cafeteria all talking about this.
Oh no, that's a different thing.
Okay.
when we were discussing what the movie could be.
Right. When it was
Anyway.
like, that
So
guy's
maybe
on
it came out in
Broadway.
2000. Anyway, so the movie comes out, and we're all walking out of the theater after we saw it. There was like 10 of us who went together, and everybody's talking about what they liked and what they didn't like, and how much they loved it and everything. And I'm walking very quietly. I'm a very loud person some of the time. Most of the time, I'm a very quiet person, and so I'm just letting everybody else talk, and I have nothing. They're not the level at that point in my life, 24 years ago, a quarter of a century ago. I had read almost every X-Men comic ever written. Most of them as reprints. But my brother owned X-Men from before 200 to after 300, and I read all of his copies, and I had to sit there with tongs almost. It was how much he was meticulous about his comics. Read every issue of New Mutants. I had read most of X Factor. I had read all of X Force. I knew everything there was to know about the X-Men. And we're walking out of the movie theater, and Spikey, after everybody else is talking about how much they loved it and how great it was, and at the time, it was probably one of the best superhero movies ever made, honestly. I mean, there's been better since, but before, whenever that came out, 99, 2000, whatever it was, there weren't that many that were better than that. And finally, she's like, there's a lull in the conversation. I haven't said a word. Since we sat down in the theater. We're walking out. People are trying to decide. The conversation that's starting up is where we should go to grab a snack before we go back to campus, because it's like 7 o'clock at night. Some people hadn't eaten, and they're going back and forth. And Spikey's like, wait a minute. I want to hear what the expert has to say. And Spikey turns to me, and I'm like, who? Like, you're the comic guy. What do you have to say? And I'm like, I think it was okay. I think they basically stayed true to who the characters were. They didn't do a great job, but they didn't do a bad job. I thought the movie all in all was fantastic, but they're going to have a really hard time getting. So at the time, it was about 60 years worth of history. So I think that's what I said, but I might have said 50. So I said that they're going to have a really hard time getting 60 years worth of history into an hour-and-a-half movie. And she's like, okay, all right, okay. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I was looking forward to the next one, which did not disappoint. X-Men 2 was arguably better than the first X-Men movie. The computer graphic special effects were just starting to get to the point where they could actually do justice to these characters. Thought it was a great casting choice for Patrick Stewart. Before I saw it, I had no idea, like everyone else, I had no idea who Hugh Jackman was, and I didn't know if he was going to be great or not. And he's, to this day, he's way too tall to play Wolverine. Which sounds like a criticism, but he really has taken Wolverine and made him a great character, really portrayed him well on screen, despite his height. I don't want to be accused of heightism or anything. But that's really what you're looking for when you're doing an adaptation, is staying true to the spirit of the original source material, because you want to get that across in a different media, I guess. No, I think it would be medium. Doesn't matter. In doing that, it's got there's very different ways to convey things in different media, and it's going to be different in a book or in a speech. Or C.S. Lewis talks about this in his written foreword to Mere Christianity, where Mere Christianity was first produced as 4 talks given during World War II, during the bombings from while Germany was bombing Britain. And so he wanted to galvanize the people of Britain and remind them of where they came from. So he talked about what Christianity really is. And in doing that, and then he took that and put it in a book. And in his foreword to the book, he was like, I was very tempted to just in writing this, just use bold and italics to emphasize the points like I did when I gave the speech. So it would have just been a copy of his speeches. And he realized that it was not the proper way to do this, because there are ways in writing to get across what you mean and what you think and what you're trying to say without using italics and bold. There's actually ways to emphasize things because it's a different medium. And then switching from that stuck with me when I read that. And when switching from one medium to another medium, you're going to have those differences. That's just the way it is. And cartoons, you're able to do a lot more than you are in movies, though that's not as true today as it was throughout most of my lifetime. But in comics, it's going to be different than TV, though comics is the closest there is to video. And books are going to use different things, and the truth of the matter is Jumper is a lot about Davy's feelings and what he's thinking. And to get that across on screen, you have to find ways to shrink it down and insert these things through dialogue or a voiceover. And that doesn't always work. And instead of treating this book like they should have, like make it a low budget movie with the idea is you want to make your money back, so you keep the budget low, and you know it's not going to have blockbuster appeal. They went ahead and made it into a blockbuster, put the budget behind it to make it a blockbuster with amazing special effects, which were excellent for the time period. I don't know if they stand up or not. CG has a hard time standing up over time. If you go back and watch Star Wars, the original movie there, A New Hope, whatever you want to call it, those practical effects instead of computer-generated effects stand up to this day. They look just as good today as they did in 1977. They look just as realistic and just as fake, but just as realistic too. Like, Chewbacca's not a real creature, but you can look past that because they've got a person inside of him moving, and you can see him move, and it looks as realistic today as it did in 1977, to the point when they threw Chewbacca into the prequels, all they did was give him the costume. They might have cleaned the costume a bit or cleaned it up a little, but they didn't have to CGI Chewbacca in for the prequels or the sequels. Just didn't need it. So.
Hey, again, a good example of TV that came out at the same time. Now, I am a fan of both Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine. You watch those two shows side by side, and the effects, the Star Wars effects for Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, they hold up better because because the ships themselves were pretty much still using models.
Yeah,
to do everything. Models. Whereas with Babylon 5, they went all out with the newest CGI of the time, which when it came out, even then it didn't look fantastic, but it was cool because it was new, and all the ship battles and everything was full-on CGI. However, the ship fights and all that stuff from Babylon 5, they are the things that hold up the least because it was full CGI. Now, you're not really watching Babylon 5 for ship battles anyways. You're watching it for the story and all that. But it's just a good example of why sometimes going that extra bit with CGI over time, it's just not going to hold up. Like, either it looks too good, so you get the uncanny valley if you're doing people, or it just, the technology, even though it's good at the time,
gets eclipsed.
It's eclipsed sometimes within the next year, sometimes within a couple of months. And so Babylon 5, like the ship battles, almost look like what we would consider like bad graphics from a video game from now. But I'll still rewatch that show every so often because I find the storyline to be great.
So this is one of my pet peeves with modern movies, and I'm not going to name any particular film. I'm going to describe this, and all of you Blam Blam truckers out there are going to hear this, and you're going to think of movies that it's true for. But it's, especially for superhero movies, it's not about the powers. Now, we've covered this before in the series, but comic book writers, the best comic book writers, the superhero story scribes who have been the most amazing, have all said it's not about the power levels of the characters. It's about the growth of the characters. Now, it's within this fantastical world, and yes, the fantastical world does draw you in, but it's not the powers that keep the readers. It's the characters. And I think the greatest example of this, and that's true for sci-fi too, it's not the special effects, it's the characters. The characters are what keep us watching. The characters are what we want to identify with. Putting characters into a fantastic setting, like we're eventually going to do once we get this sci-fi universe, sci-fantasy universe in place. The fantastic universe is just there to draw you in a little bit and to allow you to make commentary about the world today, that without actually naming names or anything, and kind of because it's put in a fake world, it allows you to see things more clearly because your prejudices are taken out of the way as well, which is DS9 did that amazingly. But the example I really want to give is Firefly. Now, among sci-fi geeks, as far as I know to this day, Firefly is regarded as the pinnacle of space fantasy. I really can't think of anything that's people think is better than that, even though it only got half a season.
Well, I can say some people would disagree, but it's probably one of them. It's, if not my favorite sci-fi show, definitely it's my favorite Western at the very least.
So the thing about Firefly is it's not about the technology. It's not about River's psychic powers. Those are just elements of the story. It's about the crew. It's about the characters. It's about all the crazy things that they do and that they come into these stories with backgrounds and they're interesting, and who Jane is. There is no way to like Jane for a lot of that show until you see him start to change as a person. When he starts realizing he's part of a crew and there's more there going on than anything else, yeah, he's pretty amazing. And it was like there's a lot of female empowerment going on. One of the deadliest fighters on the crew is Zoe, and she's fantastic. But the fact that she's a girl is just secondary to the fact of who she is. She's a stoic warrior who takes no nonsense from anyone and is a better fighter than the captain. Even though the captain's... Go ahead.
And the worst fighter on the crew, or at least second worst, is her husband.
Yeah, definitely second worst.
Yeah.
Simon. And it's this amazing, fantastic story that we didn't get enough of, but I think it's great that it got canceled because they didn't get a chance to mess it up. But they knew it wasn't about the sci-fi. When Tim what is it, Minear or whatever his name was?
Tim Minear, yeah.
Yeah, Minear. And Josh Sweden, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So when they were writing this, they made it a point. They got things wrong. There's 12 episodes, and there's continuity errors in 12 episodes with the sci-fi. So when I'm telling you truckers out there that you don't need to go through everything that Buse and I are going through here to make this a sci-fantasy story, that's true. You don't. Go out and tell a great story first and foremost. But at the same time, you do want to have these things lined up and get a great story out there and then go back and line them up. Did you know that the second edition of The Hobbit significantly changed the story?
I did not.
In the first edition of The Hobbit, Gollum plays the game for the ring, and when he loses, he capitulates. He doesn't call Baggins a thief. He acknowledges the fact that he lost and agrees because of the terms of their
agreement,
back and forth there. Yeah. He
Barter,
agrees to
wager,
lead him out of the cage. Yeah, caves, not cage. So, yeah, he doesn't call him a thief, but when J.R.R. Tolkien starts working on The Lord of the Rings, and there were 5 printings of the first edition, by the way, when J.R.R. Tolkien starts working on The Lord of the Rings, he realizes that the One Ring is now important and that that's going to be the One Ring, and he realized he has to go back and do a retcon. So The Hobbit got a retcon. Don't be afraid of retcons. It's okay. Your story is evolving as you write it. On the other hand, to take another example of some of the greatest writing I've ever seen, there's a comic out there called Girl Genius, which their website is girlgeniusonline.com. This isn't so much a free plug because I don't think they want the publicity from us, because we don't have any viewers yet. We have what, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Come on, you Blam Blam truckers. As of when we recorded this, we have 2 episodes out. We need more of you Blam Blam truckers out there to help us out here. They, in the 3rd issue of the comic for Girl Genius Online, chapter 3. I don't know if that really was the 3rd issue or the 4th issue or whatever, but
I mean, I've got the book over there, but
yeah. Well, is that the graphic novel? Because they started off as floppies, single issues.
Whatever you lent me is what I got over there.
All right. So, Baron Wolfenbach actually mentions the Corbetite station without explaining at all what a Corbetite station was. But the creators of the comic already knew what that was going to be. So now in Act 11, that was Act 3. So now in Act 11, we finally see a Corbetite train. It was a train station. Now they knew that way back then. But years and years later, because they're putting out, 1 page of a comic, 3 pages a week. That's about 1 full comic every 2 months. A full comic is only 23 pages. And yeah, over a decade later, they finally reveal what the Corbetite, who they are. And they're a religious group in this steampunk fantasy, gaslight fantasy, whatever they decide to call it, who run a train. And they're a monastery based off of running trains and keeping the trains running in Europa. But we don't know that. And we might get a little clue here and there. They're mentioned in passing, but we don't actually see that until it wasn't Act 11, it was Act 14. Act 14! They've done time travel already. They've done this. They've done that. The Castle Heterodyne and the Castle Wolfenbach and this, that, and the other thing. And the Other and Othar Tryggvason, who has nothing to do with the Other, and all these amazing stories that happened. But because they had their stories all set in stone, they were ready. Their background was right. They're ready to continue to tell these stories, and they can let other people come in and tell stories in their universe, and they get all their continuity right. And I think that's amazing. And I know most of the geeks I've talked to think that's amazing. And I'm hoping all you Blam Blam truckers out there think that's amazing.
Unfortunately, even though Bees lent me that book a while ago, although we did this to each other, I still have not quite read it yet. Just like, I'm guessing you haven't read X-Wing 11
the X-Wing
yet,
book. Yeah. I'm sorry, man.
It's okay.
The passion's not there.
I understand. For me, this is the... so, we've talked before about our feelings a little bit about Star Wars, and while we try to keep it positive, for me, some of the issues are... everything I learned didn't matter at all. And it's not... and worst thing was, it was for fiction that, for the most part, isn't exactly going to help me in my life until now, I guess, because it helps me on the show. But it's not like, I learned about an old technology and now that technology is not being used, because hey, some people will continue to use technology after it's somewhat obsolete because hey, people use old systems. No, we're talking literally about a fictional universe, so all of my knowledge of it is no longer helpful. It means that any future versions of Star Wars Trivial Pursuit that come out will not take any of that into effect. So I can't trounce my college friends, except for those. We never actually played Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. Two of us didn't play in a game together.
Not against each other, no.
No. But, yeah, I lost all of that. But, and I hadn't finished all the books, but I was trying to. I went through the audiobooks of some. I was, because I've mentioned, I may or may not, well, since I plan on putting this out as a bonus episode for Halloween week, you guys wouldn't have heard me say a lot of this stuff beforehand, but I'll put it this way. I was a big fan of the expanded universe until the New Jedi Order books, which were the Eugene Vong books. And I got through all of them, but it was hard. And then I listened to audiobooks of a good amount that came after that, and I wasn't as invested in them. But I was still trying to get through everything, because I'm like, well, blah, 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 blah. And then, once Disney got it, and everything was no longer canon, I lost my desire to really continue to catch up on the stuff I missed, because it didn't matter for the new stuff that was coming out. And even with the new stuff that has been coming out for years, I got upset for the same reason I got upset when the Clone Wars CGI came out. Because when it first came out, the actual theatrical release of the movie, which most people don't like, I actually enjoyed, but
it did tank in the theaters.
Yeah, I was there opening night, though, and I enjoyed it.
I know why it tanked in the theaters. Lucas forgot his own rule about the action beat.
Makes sense. But it didn't make me invested enough in the show, but I started watching the show just a little bit. But then when I realized it pretty much made the previous Clone Wars series, the cartoons, which were canon technically, they were supposed to fill in the gap between episode 2 and 3, and they came out pretty much during, I don't know if it was right after episode 3 came out, or before, or whatever, but it literally filled in the gap right up until the beginning of episode 3. And all of a sudden you tell me that show, which I was somewhat invested in, made sure that I watched almost every single week on Cartoon Network as it came out, bought when it came out so that I could review it and watch it many times over. You're telling me that didn't matter anymore. Same thing with the expanded universe. And I felt, it's as silly as it sounds, because I know it's just a story, man. It's just fiction. But I felt betrayed. And we've talked about this before, which everybody should know about because it was within our first 2 episodes. I felt a little betrayed by it. And so I didn't want to invest time into the Clone Wars show, even though I heard mostly good things about it. And I'm trying to watch it now. And I think it's actually a pretty solid show. But anyways, neither here nor there. That's just me going off on a
I know what you're
tangent.
saying, and we've gone over the past, so I've had my heart broken by tons of series. And being a comic books fan means every time they change the creative team, which happens quite often, it's going to change the history of the book, unfortunately. They're not going to necessarily, Spider-Man in particular had a lot of problems with this. It's not going to necessarily follow the continuity or even finish the storylines that had happened before. We still don't know what happened to Peter Parker and Mary Jane's kid that got kidnapped, that they thought was dead.
Right, because we only had the alternate universe Spider-Girl, which was not in the main 616. Yep.
Which was not the boy that they lost.
Wait. There was a boy too?
I told you, every time a creative team changes on a comic book, they don't necessarily finish the storylines. So we had them working on this, the team that was on it was working on the storyline where they thought they lost their child before it was born. Turns out the child got saved, but was kidnapped. We don't know who kidnapped them, if I remember correctly. This was 20 years ago. And a new creative team took over, and all of those storylines were ignored. I think the Clone Saga started shortly thereafter. It was right around the Clone Saga time period, anyway.
And shortly after shortly after the Clone Saga, then was when the other pregnancy happened, in which they lost May, like baby May, that became May Parker in the alternate timeline.
Oh yeah, and some of this even goes to infighting among the creators, where they like to screw each other. That's probably the wrong word to use, but they like to bone each other over, mess with each other, if you will. And only the fans get hurt. So,
by the way,
look it up now. So,
post editor's note: Buse was right. May Parker was the baby that Bees was talking.
We're approaching the hour mark, aren't we?
We'll still take a break then.
But before we do that, well, is there something else you wanted to say besides the hour mark?
There was, but I forgot it now because I get distracted.
I distracted you. Sorry. Before we sign off for this episode, I do want to say, make my standard appeal to David Zaslav, for anyone over at WVU.
This is going to continue into the next episode. Don't worry about it. You can still make your appeal.
Let me finish. I have an amazing pitch for a DC movie. I'd love to pitch it to somebody. So if this ever gets big enough that we're out there and somebody actually wants to listen to one of my pitches, I've got some great ideas, some amazing storylines. Let me know. Hit me up. If somebody knows how to contact these people, let me know. Hit me up. If they're looking for movies to make them some money, I've got some stuff that will appeal to to my generation. I can speak at least for us, based on solid storytelling ideas, classical storytelling concepts, and set in the DC universe.
Okay.
Then, should we sign off, or are you going to run this into the next episode? Because I think we could change subject when I come back.
Okay. Well, we'll sign off for now, and then I'll decide if I stitch it up later.
Fair enough. All you Blam Blam truckers out there, y'all keep on trucking. We're rooting for you, no matter what you're doing. Have a great day.
See you, truckers.